Welcome to What I Wish I Knew at 30. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies the fusion of creativity, innovation, and business acumen in the culinary world. Chef Adam Moore is a global executive chef with a career that stretches far beyond the kitchen. From his early days in hotels and restaurants, he mastered the craft of cookery, pastry, butchery, and food manufacturing before transitioning into leadership roles with some of the world's biggest names: Suntory, Campbell, Arnott's, Cerebus, and George Weston Foods. Adam has led groundbreaking work in product development, portfolio growth, and innovation leadership across the Asia-Pacific region, helping to shape the way we experience food in retail, hospitality, manufacturing, and food service. But beyond the boardroom, Adam is an industry ambassador, a mentor, a food writer, and TV guest, passionately supporting young chefs and championing innovation from sensory science and recipe development to the exciting world of alternative proteins. He's not just a chef, he's a culinary strategist and visionary who continues to push the boundaries of what's possible in food. Did I miss anything, Adam? Is there anything that you would like to add to that? And I know there is, because we talked a little bit before we came on air.
Yeah, thank you, Fran. I forget that I do so many things. Since the age of 13, I've always had this tenacity of life and kept running and doing everything, like starting soup kitchens when I was 13, getting the Order of Australia when I was 18. I forget what I do because I just enjoy it. I did a charity event on the weekend. I'm an ambassador for Cure Cancer. If you asked me 6 years ago, what was that like? Would you have been doing Cure Cancer? And I'm like, I didn't think a chef would be working with doctors, not only raising funds and awareness for cancer, but working with scientists and understanding this more. Being an ambassador for Are You OK, understanding mental health in this world. There's so many things to my world that I just naturally part of my life. I enjoy every moment of it, Fran.
I love that. I love that. And you can see that, your posts on LinkedIn and everywhere else, there's always something going on. It's like, I often look up and go, what's Adam up to today? It's like, but it's brilliant. It's a life fully lived.
Still more to go.
Fantastic.
There's still more to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're just beginning. I think that's absolutely true. So Adam, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for taking the time to jump on here. And let's get into it.
Awesome. Ready to go.
Excellent. So just imagine we're jumping into a time machine right now, me and you. You're 30 years old again. Where are you? What are you doing? And what's going through your mind at this stage of life?
What a great question. 30, it feels so long ago. It's almost nearly 20 years ago. And getting close to that 50 zone, which is scary. 30, I thought I knew everything about the world. I thought I was ready for the new challenges. I was not a dad yet, which was something I was looking forward to. 30, I thought I had made all my mistakes, done them in the past, and I was ready to take on the world. It was at 30, I was just into a company called George Weston Foods. I was in sales, so I had at this stage had already managed hotels. I've owned restaurants. I've done so many fun things already, and I'm like, I've achieved a lot, and I've got the maturity now to take on the world. Boy, was I wrong.
So you felt that you had life figured out. You didn't feel at all that you were just winging it.
I wasn't winging it. I thought I was ready to take on the challenges. If I knew what was happening in the next 20 years from that time, I would have done a lot more to prepare myself and probably not been as confident of where I was back at 30.
It's incredible, isn't it? If we could bottle hindsight, we'd all be millionaires, wouldn't we? And
yes.
I
think the most important thing was I was yet to be a father, as I mentioned. We did try numerous times, and it wasn't until I was 33 that I became a dad. And that moment, everything that you had before, the knowledge before, pretty much goes out the window, because having kids, and yourself, you've had 5, you don't get any rule books. There's no manuals. There's no instruction book. And it was, when I first held my daughter, she's just been born and I got to bath her. It's that moment you go, wow, am I ready for this? I I don't think I am, and, besides buying a shotgun for having a daughter, to ward up or anything like that, it was that moment where I went, I don't think I'm ready for this. And although it's been the best moment of my life, it's, phenomenal that, but I thought I knew everything and was ready to take on the world. And then here comes a little bundle of joy that turns your whole world upside down and you don't sleep again and all the fun stuff. And I thought I'd seen the world. And then when you have a child and you live through the child's eyes, the world changes as well. Yeah.
Totally. And, you know, I know the one thing, I mean, it was almost like self just disappeared.
Yes.
Everything now with my first daughter, with all of the kids, it was all about them. And, and that's an incredible lesson, isn't it? When we're confident, when we're out there, when we're running businesses and everything else, we just don't think life's going to change. And then bang, this happens and life changes forever.
Correct. I think is probably the biggest learning curve, and I'm still learning now. My daughter's now coming on to 15. Yeah, it's or 15 going on 40. An amazing part of my life. Rock star. She's just got her first job, and I'm reliving life through her eyes at the moment, which is amazing, and
Yeah.
it's brought back so many memories too. Going, oh, when I had my first job, I was 13, and all the fun stuff, and I'm like, wow, it's just. It's I wish I had more. That's probably one thing
Mm,
I wish I'd done earlier, but that wasn't from trying. My wife and I had multiple miscarriages, which was traumatic.
mm.
It's these things that you don't often think about. You try and have a plan for life, and
Yeah.
then life throws you curveballs numerous times in multiple ways.
Surely does. It surely does. Going back to when you were 30, what was your biggest dream at that time? Did life take you where you expected?
And my biggest dream was to be essentially, first of all, a dad was key on my mind, and I wanted to be a chef of profile that everyone knew. And I hadn't done a traditional way in such that, yes, I had done fine dining, I'd done restaurants, but I wasn't, I was breaking off a little bit with the food world and learning new different, disciplines, learning pastry, learning butchery, learning charcuterie. I thought I had restaurants and I've done what was next. And I thought I was going to be this captain of industry essentially as a chef and change people how they perceive food. And that was my biggest goal back then. Besides being a dad, was to be the leader of food and really change it. And I think I got there in some parts and in some
Mhm.
components of that. I think I still can achieve that now, but different directions happen. Like we said, different pathways come up, the curveballs come in, the road changes, and
Mm.
you think you're on a smooth road and it's nice bitumen, and then all of a sudden it goes to rocks, and you're like, oh, there's a bit rocky here. And I think at 35 to 45 were some of my biggest challenges I've ever faced in life, and you are not ready for them.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about that. They say that life is the best teacher. The things that come to us, the curveballs, the lessons often come wrapped in trauma and disaster. So
Yeah.
what do you think we've talked generally about curveballs, but what do you think was the biggest curveball that life threw at you? And, whether it was in business, relationship, in your personal growth, what was that sort of one experience that at the time felt like the worst thing ever, but it actually ended up shaping you?
I had to think about this question a lot, and for me, it wasn't one area. It was three moments in my career, and not just career, my personal life that really impacted me. And the first one is very hard to talk about, and I hope your listeners also take some sage advice from this. The first one was trying to be a leader of the industry. I wanted to make sure we had the young generation coming through so that people could tap me on the shoulder and say, I want your job. And that's what I was hoping for because I had so many great mentors in my life. One day I woke up and I had been to 8 funerals of young chefs. And when you wake up and you're trying to understand why these young kids were taking their lives, this was just this moment where I went, what is happening? Why why are these young, talented individuals not wanting to live? And I couldn't understand it. And there was one young kid took his life day after Christmas, and this young man had his whole life in front of him, and I couldn't see the signs. And I was coaching him and mentoring him, and I didn't see the signs of what it was. And you always go, what could I have done better? What did I do wrong? What did I say? Why am I going to so many funerals of young kids? And that this one has been a part of my life and plagued my life for a long time. And if I look at it, I ran from trauma when I was younger, but I did charity when I was from the age of 13. I ran from my trauma. I probably gained weight, and that's probably the second trauma in my life, which I'll talk about in a second. But I always said, oh, you can actually, there's methods of surviving differently. And interesting, that moment was where I wanted to pivot my world. And that's why I went down the Are You OK way and really started championing not just for young chefs, but for young people and their mental health. In that, I had to deal with my own mental health issues, because when you're trying to help people, you often block out your own traumas. And that one was one that I just like, I need to fix this. And I still don't have a resolution, although I have worked years on so many young kids, and not only young kids, young adults that have, either tried to take suicide, suicide as a pathway, thought about it, or their life is just so bad they don't know where to turn. And not just chefs, now I'm mentoring, people word of mouth, and this is something that's been a real legacy for me and really changed my approach in life. It also tied in, and I talked about weight. I ran from my own trauma. Weight was something that was catching up to me. At this time in the mid 30s, weight really took a heavy toll. And it was only the last 3 years where I actually really did something about my weight. And, losing 94 kilos through an operation, through surgery, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. I
Yeah.
wasn't healthy. And if I wanted to help these young kids, I needed to be around a lot longer. And the same sentence, I need to be around for my wife and my child.
Mm.
And it wasn't great that this is the worst part of my life, that I was actually getting bigger than what I ever expected. In amongst this, another thing happened. If you go back in time, sometimes you wish that they never happened, but these are the things that defined who I am today and what I've done. And so I've talked about my weight and then the mental health for young people. I was doing the role, I was in Campbell Arnott's, the corporate chef, and I went to the US for a conference, and it was exciting because I had never been to Boston, and I was so excited with all these other chefs. It was a global conference, and there was lots of people around. And unfortunately, I was in the wrong time at the right place. No, wrong time, wrong place. But a lot of luck on my side. I was there when the Boston Marathon bombs occurred, and it's interesting. It's a life-changing moment that you're
Mm.
not prepared for. Essentially, we were about 300 meters away from the finish line, because all the chefs at the time were going on a tour, and we went around old Chinatown and Little Italy in Boston. And, my daughter was only young at this time. She's only about 18 months, getting close to 2 years. And I'm overseas with colleagues from all over the world. And this moment happens. And I still go back, and this moment,
Mm.
you'll never forget. Actually, I've got a painting hanging in my house by Victor Shirago, who actually was about a restaurant that we visited the night before the accident happened, or before the bombing happened.
Mm.
And it was one of the best nights I had of my career, with all these chefs in one of these a beautiful Michelin star restaurant, and this beautiful painting in my house. It just reminds me of this moment of every time. And, not getting into the gory moments, but the Boston bomb occurred. We were in Little Italy, which was technically the safest part of the time. And when this occurred, when the bomb first happened, because we were about a building away, a street away, it sounded like a cement truck going over a speed hump really fast. That's the noise that it sounded like. And you hear people cheering, and you go, oh, okay, what's happening? And it wasn't until we were in Little Italy, we had no phone reception. All phones have been cut out. And there was this panic started settling in. And I still remember this. There was a little cafe, and there was like 60 people hanging out at this cafe looking at TV. And here we are with these chefs, and I'm like, these are people I don't really know, and I don't know what's happening. And you're seeing people park their cars in the middle of nowhere, getting out, leaving their cars parked. It's still alive. The car's still going, walking out aimlessly, looking lost. And then I saw one of the first victims. She was running and her arm had been blown off. And I was not very good with blood, but this moment, I still remember her running and she's not screaming, but there's this blood and there's no arm there. And this is these moments, and I can't, it wasn't until weeks later that it really impacted me. This, being in America at that time was a moment that I'll never forget. I was with colleagues that were so important to me at that moment. We all paid. There was 16 of us that got into a taxi because no one was stopping and no one knew anything, and all we had to do was get back to the hotel, and we paid $1,000 US for this taxi driver to cram 16 people in a taxi. If you ever want to know what cramped is, that is the moment. Here you are, and I was a big guy, and I'm kind of squashed and in the between the back seat, and there's lots of other people stacked on, and there's this moment you're not thinking, and there's no phone calls, and all you're trying to think about is your family. And we get back to the hotel and we run the event that we're supposed to, the conference that was on. We all performed like nothing had happened, and people were everywhere. They were at the baseball fields, they were at the final finishing lines, there's chefs out there, there was people all over, and all we cared about was when we got back was everyone was safe. There was none of
Mm.
our team that was affected. But this moment, and then being in America during that time, and then trying to fly home, I still remember I was with the two European chefs that couldn't speak a word of English. We were on a train station at Boston to go to one of the other factories nearby, and the three of us, I had my chef knives. The other two, they couldn't speak English, and we're three foreigners. We're strip searched on the platform in front of all these people because we were foreigners, and they were searching everyone. And this moment, you're going, I've got two blokes that I don't really know that can't speak English that are
Gosh.
also probably scared tightly.
Yeah.
And here we are. And it was interesting, all this happening and everything happening. I thought I was okay. And it wasn't until about 2, 3 weeks later, I was in the boardroom and presenting, and I had a nervous breakdown. I just froze and I couldn't speak. And it really started to, I started crying. There was a whole lot of emotion. And I actually don't talk about this.
Terrifying.
And it's interesting in this moment, me being a big guy, the weight and those issues were impacting me. And then thinking about young kids as well. All three of these moments, even though they were quite separate, had a connection and a real impact where I was going forward. And, yes, I did get counseling. That's the most important thing. Identifying that I needed it. And the counseling probably opened up a deeper message with all the connectivity. So my weight, my own trauma, gaining the weight,
Yeah.
my own trauma running from, but also trying to help other people. There was this moment where I realized that sometimes you can do everything in the world and you're not going to change the outcome no matter what happens. And if I went back to 30, I would give myself some tools to say, hey, you're going to need some stuff to cope with
Mm.
it.
Mm.
And if I got the help earlier, I probably would have not suffered some of the side effects of these. And when I say side effects, I never did drugs, I never did anything like that. But
Yeah.
I found other measures. I overate and got deeply depressed in certain ways, even though in the world a lot of people didn't see that. I put on a
Yeah.
persona and I still achieved a lot of things I wanted to achieve, but there was always this moment of sadness, and I'd never wanted that again. And so, I've been very lucky that, yes, have I got help for all that trauma? Yes, I have. Have I confronted a lot of trauma? Yes, there were some issues that I needed to face. And I'm not saying you completely healed, but there's moments, and it was interesting because understanding those moments meant I could help people more and more
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
And that's the moment.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can't ever plan for the kind of trauma that obviously that you're involved in or you saw in Boston. I mean, those kind of things are, wow, just, yeah, unfathomable unless you've actually lived through it and you've been in that situation. But everything else in life, I think that's, really sage advice that, set yourself up now when you're a youngster, because you may not think that there's anything wrong or that there's anything that needs to be dealt with, but start to learn the tools, start to look. There's so much out there now, from a mindset perspective, from a resilience perspective, and become resilient in every opportunity to be able to do that. If you could go back now and whisper advice to yourself, during that time, in that moment, what would you say?
What a great question. There's one artist at the moment, young artist, Alex Warren, who's a phenomenal story. And he sings a song essentially about this. He goes back and says, if I could go back to my younger self at 12 and say, everything's going to be okay, that's probably what I should have done. And, the advice I would give back is, yes, get the help that you need. Don't be ashamed of getting help. Everyone needs help in their life, no matter what is their story. Everyone has a story. And that's something that's very important. I'm starting to learn my voice now, 20 years later from that 30, where I really now have a voice and I'm really proud of my voice. I did this amazing course, the Speakers Institute, and I thought I was a great presenter. And then I did the Speakers Institute and it stripped me down and brought me out to a different place. And now I'm dealing with some stuff. And, I was also that nice guy that loved doing everything for everyone, probably hid from my trauma a bit. And also, I didn't see some things at the time that in that time of my most weakness, the biggest weaknesses, I didn't forgive myself. And I also let people treat me the way I didn't want to be treated. And I call it as the doormat. Some of my closest friends have said, I'm not a doormat anymore. I am a human that wants to do things in this world and make a difference. And if people don't like that, I think that's the part that you do. And I probably would have told myself to lose the weight earlier than having, no, that's okay. I would have gone back and said, start doing something about your weight. Although I had surgery and it's been amazing and I feel great now and I feel energized, I should have done it a lot sooner. I wish I had done, because then it was probably some of the side effects were reversible. Now I have to live with it, and I probably wouldn't have done surgery if I had done things earlier to prevent it. So I think
But
that's where I would go back. And
again, the benefits of hindsight and the
yes,
beauty of being able to share these lessons, and they're hard-earned lessons, when we can share that with others through this kind of medium, through the way that we communicate and what we have to learn. I think that's a really wonderful thing to be able to do. When we talk about all of the challenges that you've had, and I mean, you've identified 3 of them, which are massive in their own right. Each one of those is really, and also dealing with people close to you from suicide. And we know that the chef's world does absolutely have a big issue with suicide, not just in young people, but throughout the professional world of chefing. And, I think there are things that are being done now to help in that area.
yes.
Um, and obviously, there's probably a lot more that can be done. But
There's
when
a
we
lot
look,
more that can be done, but the help is there. I think anyone that is listening, and if you're struggling right now, there is an answer for every single part of your life. Getting the help, getting the knowledge, getting an understanding of what that is, whether it be financial, whether it be, personal scars, whether it be just something that you can't deal with. There
yeah,
is ways around it. And you know what? And I've seen it time and time again, helping people change their life around and seeing their worth, seeing their value, getting
yeah,
their story told is the most important part right now. No matter how bad it seems, life is always going to throw curveballs. It doesn't stop. And I'm not saying that it has been easy ever since, but having some of the tools, I can cope with certain outcomes. Yes, there's some moments where it gets too much and you just need to find that outlet. Listen to
mm,
music, you know, uh, dance in the middle of nowhere just because you want to, go to a beach and just listen to to nature, go to a
mm,
forest or go to a bushwalk. These little things and these tools that I do now, and the higher you go up the ladder, sometimes there's tools that you just need. I need a moment, and now
yeah,
knowing those signs, now knowing that yes, I'm having a bad day, and actually acknowledging it. Now
mm,
saying, and I've actually spoken before and on social media, I saw, and just recently with Julie Goodwin, people criticizing her for losing weight, and I was so angry because I know what people can
mm,
do in this process because I've lived it. And
yeah.
the hardest lesson you can ever learn in life, and I tell this to everyone that wants to listen. If you want to learn about life, go and be a fat person and say you're losing weight at the same time, because you have critics. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
people come out of the woodwork. I'm not a celebrity, but I had people that criticized me in social media, attacked me, which didn't even know who I am. And I think having those tools, and I am lucky that I've had those events where I could make a big difference in my life and
Mm,
really change those moments. I can now identify those moments. And it's interesting. I've written a book, as I mentioned to you, I've written 3 more books now, and I'm writing because I really love telling my story. But,
mm,
not just writing cookbooks, I'm writing a poetry book, which is about my love of food, but telling it a different way and allowing myself to heal by doing that as well. But the other one was, like a self-help book about, surviving narcissists and been gaslit and all those things, which I've had plenty of experience of late, but I've seen positive ways of changing it. And I'm not saying every day is rosy. There are some days which
mm,
still feel a bit dark and a bit clouded, but at the same time, I've actually got tools to go and attack that. So these are the things that, if I was prepared at 30, probably wouldn't have some of the scars, and when I say scars, it's
yeah.
all in the physical scars in that
Mm.
toll. And it wasn't because I wasn't unhappy, it was just I didn't know how to cope with those situations at the
Yeah.
time.
And I think, one of the things that you said, you allow yourself permission now. And I think that's a really important thing, that permission to rest. When you know that something you're not having a good day, or that permission to just step back from whatever it is you're doing and just look from a different perspective, because that makes, those split seconds are so important. We're very good at carrying on, carrying on, carrying on, doing the same thing. But actually, when we take time just to pause, just to stop, and then, take physical action,
I think
that's a,
also, Brendan, the other important thing in there is allowing yourself to love yourself.
yeah,
Love yourself for who you are, for what you
yeah,
bring, and for what you do. You may not have all the answers, and I definitely don't have all the answers. I can tell you that now. I'm still learning life, but allowing myself to be loved is the biggest lesson that I've probably taken out of life. That now, yes, I don't have to be harsh. Is the clothes that I'm wearing the right fit? Or, am I wearing the most fashionable item? No, I'm not. Am I doing things that I want to do? Yes, I am. Do I have a
yeah,
wonderful, family? Yes, I do. Do I have great friends? Yes, I do. And I have those
mm,
moments, and I have those key words where I tell people that, I am struggling some days and I just need that moment to talk and allow things in. And also clearing some of the, there's some people that are not as understanding or caring, just allowing them to be put aside and not, and dealing with it in a more positive way instead of allowing it to eat away at you
yeah,
every day.
yeah.
So
And it
allowing yourself to love yourself.
Yeah, and it's so important as well, the people that we surround ourselves with, because they do have a massive effect on how we show up and the things that, and when you have people around you that aren't holding you up, aren't rising with you, then I think there comes a point when it's time to actually say, well, that's okay, they're doing them, but I'm doing me. And that comes with age, to be able to be brave enough and have the courage to, not even, it doesn't even have to be done in a way where it's like, well, I'm not going to hang with you anymore. It's more, you just are very intentional of who you spend your time with. And I think that's really, really important. If we go back to all of those challenges, all of the things that we've spoken about already, how did the experiences from those challenges change the way you approach success today?
I think the best way of looking at that question is learning that not everything's right, knowing that I don't have all the answers, and knowing that I'll be a student for the rest of my life is a positive. I don't have all the answers. I'm taking different challenges in my life all the time, and you know what? When I was 30, I thought I knew everything. I don't know everything, and that's okay. I'm doing the things I love, and I'm doing the things that I get pure joy out of. Every day everyone wants a greener pastures, whether it be in your professional life, your personal life, but sometimes it's not always green on the other side. It might look green, but when you look at it close up, it's not that green. Just finding things. And I think one of the things that, losing weight, I can do things that I couldn't do before, like run, do the activities I want to do. Fencing is something I've always wanted to do. I want to get back into acting again. I used to love acting when I was a kid, and I probably stopped doing that. And that's probably why I do TV. I love
Mm,
that theatrical world because it's
mm,
something not only for it's escape, it's just something that I enjoy and I get pure satisfaction. And the other thing I don't often talk about is I do charity, and I do charity because I love what I do. And I love seeing the joy on someone else's face, or just even knowing that I've done something for
yeah,
someone else. Those moments, like I'm still learning, I'm still gaining stuff. I did a cure cancer event on the weekend where we cooked on a boat, and like that's an experience in itself. I'm cooking on a boat, people that I don't know that really have one common cause, and that is caring for other people and making sure that we have a solution for cancer. Those moments are what I would bring back in my life. Learn, and I tell every young apprentice or young chef, learn as many things as you can. Ask questions. Taste everything in the world. That's when you know if you like something or not. Appreciate things, even if it's not part of your world. Understand it. You don't have to know everything. I don't know everything, and I'm. I want people to know that it's okay to be normal. It's okay not
yeah.
to know everything.
So if you could go back to your 30-year-old self and just give 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
Listen more, first of all. Second one would be don't rush things. Life is a beautiful, it was interesting. A mentor once told me life is like a seed that grows into a flower. If you rush it, it gets distorted and it's no longer beautiful. But if you let it grow, you'll see the aspect of it and appreciate more things. And just knowing that that's important in that space. And the other thing is, learn the things that you want to do. If someone says you can't do it, go and do it. Fran, you and I discussed it before, like doing new challenges in life.
Yeah.
Scare yourself a little bit, get out of your comfort zone and do something that you wouldn't have normally done. And it's interesting, since I've been able to do all three of those things, life's more fun, life's more magical, and there's things that you can just, if I did those back then, I had to learn those a lot later and after the fact and start to go, that makes sense. I think if you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
those moments, those three things, look, we're never going to get any younger in any moment. But appreciate things. Yes, you got grey hair, or oh, my eyes. Yes, I should have done moisturizer when I was younger. I'm not worried about those things now. I
no,
want to do
no.
that.
That's powerful, Adam. Do you think, like, looking at, I mean, obviously we've talked about it a lot, but do you think younger professionals and entrepreneurs today struggle with the same things we did? Or do you think they're facing a completely different world?
Fran, this is probably one of the biggest questions of life at the moment. If I really be honest, I think it's a very different world to where it used to be. And I'm not saying back in the old days, this is what it was like. Before social media, there was life. People wrote letters and people talked to each other. And I think also, having something like COVID in our lifetime, where people forgot about their neighbors, forgot about life. And, it was a bit disappointing to see that we could be very self centered. I think, if you're a young person that was in school during COVID, I think you're going to have a lot of anxiety because there was a lot of unknowns that no one knew about. I think social media has a lot to answer for. Social media is great. Don't get me wrong. I use social media tools. I love
Yep,
social media.
yep.
I'll do the occasional doom scroll and all those sort of things. But at the same time, the pressures and the tools that happen in social media. And I know when I was losing weight, people would say the most horrendous things. And I had one person that was someone I knew very well, but not too close to my world. It said, you talk about this weight loss, but why did you become fat in the first place? You may as well go and kill yourself because you'd be less burden on the resources of this world today. And that was an adult
Wow.
me. Luckily, I had the coping skills to go, hey, this guy's an idiot, and I
Yeah.
needed counseling and not take it on. But imagine a 16-year
Mm,
old, 17-year-old that's getting the same sort
absolutely.
of pressure and some of the tragic stories that happen like that. I just think the world is very different. It has moved. We need to be mindful that people are going to see things differently. People are going to learn differently. And we also need to be mindful that, it's interesting. Having a mental health day is not a bad thing. But there's a lot of people in the baby boomer generation that think mental health days, oh, this is made up. And, there's leaders in
Yeah.
this world
Yeah.
that also think some of these things are made up. But you know what? Mental health is a real thing.
Absolutely. Just talking about just to, going through like I would be like very late baby boomer, but that's absolutely true. It was about being stoic. There were no back doors. There was no leniency towards that. You just did what you did and you kept going and you kept going and you kept going. And, there's so many reasons for that not being a good approach to life. And I think, that is inevitable in a lot of things that yeah, I certainly believe when you don't deal with things, it settles somewhere in you from a perspective of dis-ease. And I think that's, mental health is real. Mental health is something that we need to, each and every person needs to approach. I think there's absolutely no doubt in
Yeah,
that
and
respect.
to that point, there's no doom and gloom here. There is a lot of
Mm,
positives in the world.
yeah.
And interesting, young people are probably struggling and young professionals, but the ones that are breaking the rules, and when I say break the rules, you can't break the rules if there's no rules. If there's rules, you can break them. And, the young entrepreneurs that are coming up doing amazing innovations, redefining how business is being conducted is phenomenal. And, there's a
Mm,
lot of
mm,
positive. And there are kids right now that I know turning off social media is a big part of their movement. That is awesome that people are starting to do that. And I've taken breaks from social media as well.
yeah.
There shouldn't be that pressure anymore. And, break the rules. If you don't like what's being served to you, then, show people the world that's different.
Yeah. No, I
Innovation
agree.
just, comes from so many ideas, so many places, but it's
Mm,
also looking at things, looking at the question or looking at the shape and changing it into a normal way to go, hey, this could make a difference in life. And you know what? That's what the world's going to be winning on when
yeah.
we start looking at things differently. Peace is has always been a big part of everyone's life. But I think the younger generation is now more in tune saying, hey, you adults, stop doing these stupid things.
Yeah.
Let's start working things out. And you know what? We're seeing more of that, whether it be, people, getting together and talking about it or, having rallies or whatever they're doing, and it's always been a part of life, no matter what cycle you've been. But what's happening is younger people saying, "Well, I don't want this life for myself. I want the
Yeah.
world to be better."
Agreed. And, just changing tack slightly here, because I feel you and I could actually stay on air for hours. And I think, and we could definitely extol the virtues of lots of things. But what was the best advice that you ever received and who gave it to you?
I've had lots of great mentors in my life, and two straight away that come to my mind, and they pretty much shaped my life. Sister Patricia Tully, I went to a Catholic school. She was the nun at our school, a remarkable lady, and she was the one that realized that I had a trauma at 13, and she was the one that also coached me into doing charity. And because of that magnificent woman. She really shaped the direction of where I've gone, and I've never strayed away from charity.
Mm,
It opened so many doors to and so many awards and so many wonderful things.
mm,
She said doing it often gives other people joy, and that moment you never can take away from them. And
mm,
that's why I do charity. And Sister Pat, and a remarkable lady from Emmaus Catholic College, and I'll call it out. She just
mm.
was that hero in that space, and she was such a charitable woman herself. But to get someone like myself, and I've mentored so many people since then in that space and helped so many people. Thank you for that one. And the other one was Reinhard Reutner, who is a fabulous chef. He's still alive. He's in Singapore. Reinhard was my first chef, head chef, and 4 years I did my apprenticeship under. A remarkable leader. That man made you work hard, but there was reasons why you worked hard. And his mentoring to me was about mentoring others so that we have a stronger future. And because of him, I've been able to mentor so many young people, so many young leaders, and know that we're going to have so many strong leaders growing up. And what's even more enjoying is seeing that they're mentoring, they're the next generation, and then them coming through mentoring others as well. That's what it's about. giving back,
Yeah.
charity and mentoring, it means we have a brighter future. If you learnt a career and you're an expert for the rest of your life, but never taught one person, the world's a lot poorer.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I
to have
agree.
Sister Pat and Reinhard, two very different extremes, but that
Mm.
the advice has stuck with me for life.
Fantastic. So, Adam, we've covered the deep stuff,
Yes.
and that's life's lessons. But I'm going to hit you now with some quick fire questions. Okay,
Awesome.
so some fun stuff, and I don't want you to think about these too much. This is about the first things that come to mind. What was the worst business or life advice you ever got?
Don't invest in certain companies at the time. I think, if we had the crystal ball and went back and invested in Apple and all those things back in the time, I was told that iPhones were not going to be a thing, or phones were not going to be a thing. Yes, I think I would have invested a lot more and saved for things that were coming. Yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah, not investing is probably the worst advice.
If you could have lunch with any historical figure, who would it be?
Wow. Okay, that's a very sharp question. I would definitely love Augustus Scoffier, the modern godfather of cuisine.
Yeah.
I've got a signed Escoffier Mar Cuisine, one of the first editions. His knowledge and his impart of food was phenomenal. I would love to, I think Madame Curie, she was about science and discovery, and I think she would be an amazing person to talk to and just understand. And I think what she did with innovation in science, I still really love. And if I really had to choose someone that was a little bit left of field, I probably would go with, and I'll say this because I've actually met the person, but I would love to spend some more time with them. Unfortunately, they're no longer here. Meatloaf, who was a great singer. I absolutely one of the biggest fans of Meatloaf, and I had plenty of times to meet him, but I had so many questions to ask. So very three different people that I would have.
Very different.
Yeah,
So which would be your one if you got that ticket to go to lunch? Who would you take?
definitely August Escoffier. Definitely, that is my
Brilliant.
so many questions.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. What's a guilty pleasure you refuse to apologize for?
Yes, my pleasure. I say it on my TikTok that I'm a really bad dancer. I love music and I shamelessly will sing, dance, and if I enjoy a song and, if it's something as bad as Pink Pony Club by Chapel Roan and it
Pink
annoys everyone,
Pony Club.
yeah, exactly. I'm not ashamed of it. I happily listen to I have the most eclectic music that you could ever listen to, and I'm not ashamed of it, and I love dancing to it and singing really loud at traffic
Brilliant.
lights. If you pulled up next to me, that's my problem.
That's fantastic. I've just done this whole thing and mine's exactly the same, singing wherever I am. And if something comes on in the supermarket that I love, I will sing and dance and shuffle away. My children won't come to the supermarket with me anymore. It's like, no,
It's about having fun in life sometimes.
exactly. And getting to that point in life where you really don't care what anyone else thinks about you.
Exactly.
So if your 30-year-old self had a theme song, what would it
Yep.
be?
Great question. I've had this one theme song for most of my life, and I actually first heard it when I was 13, and it actually was the most impactful when I was going through my 30s. Down to Hell by Meatloaf is still my credo today. It is this song when I first heard it on vinyl, and I still play it on vinyl. It was just this song that has really got me through life, and lots of music's shaped my life, but that song has really stuck with me. And I think as a parent, I think if I look at Meatloaf's albums, it's about life in general. And Bat 2, Bat 3, they were about life, periods in life. And Bat 1 was about teenage life. And then when Bat 2 come on, it was probably about my 30s, but I still use Bat Out of Hell, my theme song. Now it's probably Heaven Can Wait, because I'm getting close to the older,
Absolutely.
but that's a Meatloaf song as well.
I don't know them well.
I got to meet him on TV on Rove Live, and I met him in person numerous times, and he was just such a phenomenal character. But the
Yeah.
music, obviously written by Jim Steinman, just an amazing human, and those songs have been the shape of my life.
Brilliant. I love it. Meatloaf's perfect. So, what's one thing you absolutely sucked at in your 30s, but you've mastered now?
I think I really sucked at having confidence. I thought I had
Ah.
confidence, and, when you go and lose a lot of weight, that's a whole new rawness in the world. So I really sucked at confidence. Now I've even though I've been on TV, I still get scared sometimes, but I love the thrill of things. I just love challenging new things. So the confidence is a very different thing now. So the confidence I have is not that cocky young guy that thought they it's now, this well-mastered machine, and confidence comes and goes in different ways, but you still can be nervous about things because you care about it. But I think, my confidence I thought I had confidence back then, but the confidence I have now is very different to what I had as a 30-year-old.
Yeah. Wow. Adam, that's incredible. I know so many listeners are going to resonate with your story. Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
let's just do a quick recap. What is the single biggest takeaway you'd like people to remember from our conversation?
What a great question. I think the most important thing now, and the 2 most important things, is you have a voice and it needs to be heard. Your story needs to be told. And please love yourself. Be kind. Be kind to the world, but be kind to yourself. That this is if you can go away and these 2 lessons that you've got, and that does make a difference, then please, use that. Be
Oh,
kind to yourself. Love yourself a little bit more. Just remember those moments where you go, wow, life is beautiful. Take a deep breath. Just breathe it in and go, I love myself. And I know it sounds corny saying that, but it's just that, just appreciate it. Just take the time and appreciate it.
I think it's a beautiful reminder that everything that you think is so important at one particular time will pass. And, yeah, I love that. And for everyone listening, here's my challenge to you. Take one thing from today's episode and apply it to your life this week. Maybe it's reaching out to someone who can mentor you. Maybe it's finally taking that leap you've been scared of. Whatever it is, take action. If this episode inspired you, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a question or a topic you want me to cover in a future episode, please send me a message. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in to What I Wish I Knew at 30. And remember, your best chapters are still ahead. So I'd like to thank you, Adam Moore, for joining me today. It's been a wonderful conversation. We've been through so many different aspects of life and so many sage words and wonderful wisdoms. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And I look forward to everyone else being with us in the future for our next episode. Remember, your best chapters are still ahead. So see you next time.